Welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. Here we are taking a look at quite possibly one of the best racing games ever made for the PlayStation. Actually, even one of the best racing games probably made to this date, and that is Colin McRae Rally. That was originally released on the PlayStation back in 1998. There was a load of racing games that were originally on the PlayStation, but a lot of them were all kind of more arcade type based. If you played the likes of Sega Rally on the arcades or even on the Sega Saturn, or if you even played the likes of V Rally, which was on the PlayStation, which would have been kind of an alternative to that. They had likes of licensed cars and so forth, but they also always had kind of like an arcade type of style to it, where you had multiple cars on the track and you were trying to overtake them and avoid them while also trying to win the races. But this was one of the first games out there that genuinely tried to be authentic to the actual proper style of genuine rally that you would have seen on the TV and like the WRC at the time as well. So, because you only had really the one car on the track and you were literally just racing against the time, trying to get the best possible time on the leaderboards. So this definitely had more of a simulation feel to it, more than arcade, and was very realistic for its time, which was quite unique. I still, in my opinion, think this is one of the best racing games I've ever played, hands down, and it was definitely one of the best racing games ever made for the PlayStation in general. And there's a lot of really good racing games on the PlayStation. This year's definitely up there. This would be, in my opinion, definitely in the top 3 for sure. And it's an incredible game. So my first experience with this game, actually, I remember seeing it in magazines, like on the official UK PlayStation magazine. I remember reading like loads of articles back in the day. Now this was going back to when we didn't have access really to the internet, because we didn't have like a computer or anything like that at home, and there was no such thing as mobile devices or phones or anything like that back in the day. So the only way you got access to see any kind of information about these type of games maybe would be on the likes of, say, magazine articles, or if you went into actual game stores where you'd see posters, or even sometimes that the games were released you'd see the games on the shelves, or sometimes you might actually have TV shows that actually used to promote and used to do reviews of games. They used to have that on the TV programs back in the day. That was one of the things that was they were only real avenues that you had to get news of these type of games. But I remember actually it was actually on my 16th birthday. I remember I actually had the PlayStation actually I'd owned my PlayStation for a couple of months, and we had collected like say quite an amount of games, and I collected like quite a few racing games, but we were still collecting the likes of the demo discs, because I really loved getting the demo discs every month, because it was always interesting to see what type of games were on each CD that you would get. And it was actually on the day of my 16th birthday that I actually went down to the shop, and I used some of the money that I got for my birthday, and I actually went and bought the latest magazine that was actually out at that time. And I was fortunate enough that there was actually a playable demo of Colin McRae Rally 1 on it. That actual demo, in my opinion, was one of the best demo CDs released for that magazine, because it had so many awesome games. There was a couple of racing games on it, but there was also like other types of games. There was like wrestling games, and there was a few other games on it. But this was definitely the highlight of the demo. And I remember actually getting to play it for the first time, and I was so excited to actually play it. And the fact is that it looked really authentic, very realistic, and you're playing as you could actually drive Colin McRae's Subaru Impreza that he was driving at the time, which was awesome. So it was really authentic. But the cool thing about that demo was that there was actually a couple of hidden stages in it. You had actually a maximum of 3 stages. I remember when I first loaded the demo up, and you played on one of the stages in Monte Carlo, which means you were going around in the snow and the ice. But then I decided to go and play a couple of different games there, then only to realise then that there was 2 other tracks. There was a track from Australia, and then there was actually one of these tracks here from New Zealand. And I was just like, holy crap. What actually happened was, I didn't realise at the time, my mate Derek had actually called over, and I played it a few times, and then he actually played. He said, Peter, you know that there is actually more tracks on this. I was like, what, really? He says, I was playing it, and he says, no, there's actually a couple of hidden ones. So then, only then it copped on. I was like, oh, Jesus. So I went and played it again, and you know what? You definitely got your money's worth for it in that demo, because you got to say the 3 tracks, so we played the hell out of it. And to be honest, me mate Derek, like, and even my brothers, they love this game as much as I did. We played the hell out of that demo, always trying to take turns, see who could get the best times and trying to perfect the game, because this was very, very different compared to other games at the time. We weren't used to playing games where it was literally the one car on the track and you were literally just trying to beat times, but it was very different because the handling was very, how you put it, they tried to be more realistic, so the tail end of the car would constantly slide out and drift around corners, which is something you weren't really too used to, even though we were playing a lot of arcade games, because it was definitely more realistic, and it definitely took a lot more time and patience to really master the handling of the car. And the one thing that was really, really authentic about it was, because of the fact it was on the demo, you had 3 different types of tracks, which means you had 3 different types of terrain and environments to actually race on, and they all affected the handling physics of the car, which was something that was really kind of unheard of at that time. It was very, very realistic. So it was fantastic. I remember playing that demo for weeks. I absolutely loved it, and all I wanted to do was just play that game. So eventually then, when the game was released about a couple of months later, because the demo was made access to it I think it was about 2 months before the game was actually officially released, so we had more than enough time to really kind of actually play it and get familiar with it. So then the original game did come out. Now I didn't buy it straight away day one, but my mate Derek actually did, and he played the hell out of it. You didn't even see him for a couple of days because he was literally just playing the hell out of this, because there was at the time when this was released, the amount of tracks this game actually had was actually unheard of for the time of any racing game that was released. Like, most racing games only ever had between maybe 3, maybe 4, 6, sometimes maybe up to 10 tracks, and that was the maximum that you could get. This thing had over like 50 something tracks that you could race on, all different countries, different types of terrain. You bought it alone just to have that luxury of being able to have all these type of races, which was just absolutely incredible. This game really was on another level at the time. It was a fantastic game, and it's funny as well because it actually, in my opinion, set the path for a lot of clones and other type of rally games to kind of follow, because they all seemed to step up their game after that. You got even more arcade games offering more types of cars, they offered more types of tracks. Everything really kind of started to just have more and more and more in the games that you were actually playing, and you can clearly see why. So that's why this game really kind of took it on in a league on its own. Now, even at that, this kind of came out roughly around the same time, about a couple of months after Gran Turismo came out, and at that point Gran Turismo 1, as if you don't know, Gran Turismo 1 on the PlayStation is the best selling racing game of all time on any type of console. And that really, now even though this is a different style of game because it's rally, but because of the fact is it was a racing game, it did have a lot to kind of live up to, and you could say there was a lot of competition, but this thing really held its own, I have to admit, because what Gran Turismo offered in terms of a proper simulation game, this offered it in so many different ways. This was the best rally game on any console at any time period in that time frame. It was only really bettered in terms of playability from its actual sequel, which came out a couple of years later, Colin McRae Rally 2. Now obviously subsequent games and later on in consoles have actually gotten better in, say, physics, graphics and so forth, but for me this is the benchmark. I really think that this one here is the one that really set everything in stone, and everything that came after it just really just looks up to this. It takes a lot from this here game, because when you look at the style of the graphics, like this here actual race I think that I'm actually on here now, this is track I think that was actually from the demo itself, that was one of the hidden tracks, and it was awesome because you were driving around and you could see the detail even in the graphics for that time. Right, it was definitely no Gran Turismo beater, but it was one of the better looking games, especially in terms of racing games. When you look at the aesthetics and the environment for its time, it really was a cut above the rest. It really was, and the level of detail in the environments were fantastic, and the handling physics, and then obviously depending on bumps and jumps and stuff like that could really take a toll on the suspension and the physics of the car. As you could see previously, you had to fix it whenever you took damage or whatever, so it could definitely hamper the overall mechanics of the car. So the more damage you would actually take, the worse the car would actually perform. It would affect the handling, it would affect the overall engine performance, so the car would actually go a lot slower. The steering would be all over the place, you wouldn't be able to steer the car properly. It was so realistic for its time, and it really was something that was quite unique. It offered so much. Like, this really is an incredible racing game. It still is, even to this day. I will admit, I still go back to play this every so often because it's such an awesome game. And I highly recommend, if you haven't actually played Colin McRae Rally, you're definitely missing out. And if you have played racing games, or even if you're a fan of rally games in general, you need to go back and play this, re-experience it, or if you haven't, play it for the first time, because you won't be disappointed. Yes, it may be very different comparative games today. It may seem like slower and it doesn't give you that sense of speed, but for the time, it was fantastic. And one cool thing is as well, a couple of years later after that, I got the steering wheel, the Mad Cat steering wheel. This game was phenomenal with that steering wheel, so it was, because you really got a sense of actually feeling like that you were an actual rally driver driving with the wheel, and you had the pedals and everything. And this was definitely one of the most authentic games to use with that device. It really was incredible. You got so much feedback from it, it was just insane. It really was. So it just added so much more to this game. This game really was almost perfect in every sense in terms of what it offered, in terms of cars. It was authentic to the rally kind of concept at that time. It offered so many tracks, and then the peripherals, like say the controllers and then the steering wheel that work with it, just, you know, it offered so much, and everything worked perfectly with it. It's such a fantastic game, and I highly recommend that if you haven't tried it out, you have to play it, by all means. So what are your thoughts of it if you have played it? Did you enjoy it? If you have, make sure to drop a comment down below, as I'd love to hear your thoughts, because this really is a fantastic game. It truly is, and you have to play it, even if you haven't played it already. So if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, also subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to be updated whenever I release future videos, as I am going to be re-exploring classic games like this, and even trying to play new games or other games that I never got to play on the system back in the days, and share my thoughts and memories with all of you. So until next time, keep playing those classic games and enjoying them, and make sure to keep those gaming memories alive.
Map